Tvitarator Junayor Na Bhavyam Unmulanam Twitaratra Junayor Na Bhavyam Tokena Jiva Haranam Yaralukikaya Traimasika Shachapada Sakito Pravitra Yadringatam Taragathena Divis Pusova Unmulanam Tvitaratorjunaya Nabhavyam Tokena Jiva Haranam Yarulukikaya Traimasika Shachapada Sakito Pravita Yadringatam Saragathena Divis Pusurva Unmulanam Tvitatarat Turjunayo Nabhavyam Unmulanam Tvitatarat Turjunayo Nabhavyam Tokena Jiva Haranam Yarulukikaya Traimasika Shachapada Sakito Pravita Yadringatantaragathena Divis Pusova Unmulanam Tvitaratorjunayo Nabhavyam
Okay. Tokena Jiva Tokena Jiva Harinam Yulukikaya
Tokena Jiva Haranam Yarulukikaya
Traimashika Shachapan Padasakoto Pavrita
Traimasika Shachapada Sakito Pravita
Yadringatam Tatkathena Divas Prasova
Yadringatam Taragathena Divis Prasorva
Umulanam Tu Itarata Janayor Nabhavyam
Umulanam Tvitaratorjunayo Nabhavyam
Takena Jiva Yarulukikayasa Takena Jiva Haranam Yarulukikayas
Tokena Jiva Haranam Yarulukikaya
Masikasya Chapada Sakuto Pavrita
Traimasikasya Chapada Sakito Pravita
Ringatanta Gatina Divaspasava
Yadringatam Taragathena Divis Pusurva
Umulanam Tvaitarata Jungayo Nabhavyam
Unmulanam Tvitaratorjunayo Nabhavyam Tokena Jiva Haranam Yarulukikaya. Traimasikasya Chapada Sakito Pravrittaha. Yadlingatantaragatina Divis Prisorva. Umulanam Dikataratto Junayo Nabhavyam.
Too much people.
Anyone else? Tokena Jiva Haranam Yarulukikaya. Pravrittaha. Traimasikasya Chapada Sakito Pravrittaha. Yadvingatantaragatina Divis Prisorva. Umulanam Krikatarattur Junoryo Nabhavyam. That's all? Okay, let's do the word for word. Tokena, by a child. Jivaharanam, killing a living being. Yat, one which. Uluki, Kaya, assumed the giant body of a demon. Traimasikasya, of one who is only 3 months old. Cha, also. Para, by the leg. Sakita, apavrittaha, turned over the cart. Yat, one who. Nagata, while crawling. Antara, Gatena, being overtaken. Divi, high in the sky. Spriso, touching. Va, either. Unmulanam, uprooting. To, but, itarata, anyone else then. Arjunaya, of the two Arjuna trees. Nabhavyam, was not possible. Translation, please repeat. There is no doubt. About Lord Krishna's being the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how was it possible for him to kill a giant demon like Putana when he was just on the lap of his mother? To overturn a cart with his leg when he was only 3 months old. To uproot a pair of Arjuna trees so high that they touched the sky when he was only crawling. All these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Supreme Lord. And Srila Prabhupada is divine purport. One cannot manufacture a God by one's mental speculation or by numerical votes, as has become practice for the less intelligent class of men. God is God eternally, and an ordinary living entity is eternally a part and parcel of God. God is one without a second. And the ordinary living entities are many without number. All such living entities are maintained by God Himself. And that is the verdict of the Vedic literature. When Krishna was on the lap of his mother, the demon Putana appeared before his mother and prayed to nurture the child in her lap. Mother Yasoda agreed, and the child was transferred into the lap of Putana, who was in the garb of a respectable lady. Putana wanted to kill the child by smearing poison on the nipple of her breast. But when everything was complete, the Lord sucked her breast along with her very air of life. And the demon's gigantic body, said to be as long as 6 miles, fell down. But Lord Krishna did not need to expand himself to the length of the she-demon Putana, although he was quite competent to extend himself more than 6 miles long. In his Vamana incarnation, he posed himself as a dwarf Brahmin. But when he took possession of his land, promised by Bali Maharaj, he expanded his footstep to the top of the universe, extending over thousands and millions of miles. So it was not difficult for Krishna to perform a miracle by extending his bodily features. But he had no desire to do it because of his deep filial love for his mother, Yasoda. If Yasoda had seen Krishna in her lap, extending 6 miles to cope with the she-demon Putana, then her natural filial love of Yasoda, then the natural filial, I guess that's how they pronounce it, I didn't check it. F-I-L-I, filial, A-L. Love of Yasoda, obviously, parental love, would have been hurt. Because in that way, Yasoda would have come to know that her so-called son, Krishna, was God Himself. And with the knowledge of the Godhead of Krishna, Yasoda Mayi would have lost the temper of her love for Krishna as a natural mother. But as far as Lord Krishna is concerned, He is God always, either as a child on the lap of His mother, or as the cover of the universe, or as the cover-up of the universe, the Vamana Dev. He does not require to become God by undergoing severe penances, although some men think of becoming God in that way. By undergoing severe austerities and penances, one cannot become one or equal with God. By undergoing severe penance and austerity, one cannot become one or equal with God. But one can attain most of the godly qualities. A living being can attain godly qualities to a large extent, but he cannot become God. Whereas Krishna, without undergoing any type of penance, is God always, either in the lap of his mother or growing up or at any stage of growth. So at the age of only 3 months, he killed the Sakatasura, who had remained hidden behind a cot in the house of Yasodamai. And when he was crawling and was disturbing his mother from doing household affairs, the mother tied him with a grinding pestle, or to a grinding pestle, I assume it should say, but it says with a grinding pestle. But we don't have to edit that. But the naughty child dragged the pestle up to a pair of very high June trees in the yard of Yasodamai. And when the pestle was stuck between the pair of trees, they fell down with a horrible sound. When Yasodamai came to see the happenings, she thought that her child had been saved from the falling trees by the mercy of the Lord, without knowing that the Lord himself, crawling in her yard, had wreaked the havoc. So that is the way of reciprocation, of loving affairs between the Lord and his devotees. Yasodamai wanted to have the Lord as her child, and the Lord played exactly like a child in her lap, but at the same time played the part of the Almighty Lord whenever it was so required. The beauty of such pastimes was that the Lord fulfilled everyone's desire. In the case of felling the gigantic Arjun trees, the Lord's mission was to deliver the 2 sons of Kuvera, who were condemned to become trees by the curse of Narada, as well as to play like a crawling child in the yard of Yasoda, who took transcendental pleasure in seeing such activities of the Lord in the very yard of her home. The Lord, in any condition, is Lord of the universe, and he can act as such in any form, gigantic or small, as he likes. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 27th verse of the 7th chapter, 2nd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, scheduled incarnations. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Adinati Milandasha Ganjana Shalakaya Kakshum Militam Nena Tadmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Takta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vindavane Swari Rishabhanu Stuti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Namo Ma Bandanyaya Krishna Prema Bharayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaur Tishe Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivasesha Sunyabari Paschacha Desacharine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pungam Lingayate Girim Yakripa Tamaham Bande Shigurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So today is the appearance of Lord Shiva, the greatest of Vaishnavas. Vaishnavam, what is it? Tata Sambhu. So I thought we'd take the opportunity to understand that Srila Prabhupada is famous for how the universe is not impersonal, but it's full of persons of very, very unique characters. Lord Shiva is especially wonderful because he is not a complete part of Vishnu, but nor is he completely separated part and parcel, such as the innumerable living entities such as ourselves, which exist in the form of germs and bacteria, etc., that we can't even see, and expand all the way up to all the creations that we can see. The marble comes from mountains, the wood comes from trees, and we look out the window and we can see so much plant life. And if we look closely, we'll see so many insects. And then there are, mammals of a multitude of numbers, to speak of the different human beings. Of course, we cannot see into the heavens, and because people's faith has become so distorted in Kali Yuga, especially in the Western world, and they revolted, so to speak, against the ancient scriptures and religion in the Roman Empire, which controlled basically the Near East and a lot of Europe, and both North and South, not as much into Russia and the Central Asia and India. So they revolted, and all of a sudden, Zeus and whomever the Greeks called them, they were all mythological figures that really didn't exist. They no longer could their comprehension or their understanding accept that in the heavens were persons that sort of acted human, but possessed great powers. And it all became just mythological stories. And we accepted a Hebrew version, which didn't depict a God that condemned people so much to hell. That came later in Christianity. But it was a God who was the God of the Hebrews, and he was the only God. And they were his only chosen people. And so we even find that Christ basically preached to the Jews and not to the Gentiles so much. That was primarily done by Paul and his apostles, his other disciples. Not all of them, though. Many stayed strictly within the Jewish community. And so, from the time of Christian Dharma, they developed this view that there was some, celestial existence that consisted primarily, as I learned it, from angels in a sort of judgmental God who whose laws sentence people for their sinful activities to eternal hell unless they were saved by taking shelter of the teachings of Jesus and accepting Jesus as their Savior. Then they could be saved. Or if they were not so faithful, then initially they were given some jail time. And that they could after paying their sentence, they could enter into the celestial realm, which there's not a lot of scriptural context of that realm. So we're left with pictures like Michelangelo drew, and we're left basically with the pastime of the appearance of the Son of God and the different pastimes described in the Old Testament, which the Jewish people continue to maintain a slightly different view of theology, although still very personal. And of course the other Mid-Eastern or Near Eastern religion that also came through the son of Abraham, the sons of Abraham, the Muslims or Islam, they gave a very impersonal view of God in the form of Allah, to the extent that it was completely a complete heresy to even attempt to draw a picture or to give any sort of human qualities, and even to draw well, I'm not 100% sure. I think they can draw people, but I'm not sure of that, because they're famous for drawing, and making rugs and having carvings on their mosque that never had people. So this world sort of grew up, especially, initially there was God, and we would pray for God for saving, but it was just like the earth and the heavens and hell. And, so there was good angels and there was bad angels or devils. And the sun and the moon, somehow ever, these things were all controlled by God. And in the 14th century, when scientific revolution was sort of founded in the Western world, and there was a revolt against the established religion, people wanted to understand God by reading the Bible themselves, and the Bible started to be translated into other languages. One didn't have to be a Latin scholar to read it, and a part of the church to teach it. People started to devise philosophies, and God became a sort of watchmaker who simply created the watch and wound it up and let it be. And he always remained aloof from it. So, in other words, the world worked by natural laws, such as physics and chemistry and biology, etc. But there were no people behind it. What do they call that philosophy? Is it anthropomorphism? No, it's not. It's something else, I think, where we give human attributes to God.
It is anthropomorphism.
Anthropomorphism. They also have a word for that with animals. And so we would never attribute human-like qualities to God or the Godhead in our Western theology. And, philosophically, the world consisted basically of human beings, and since we cannot see into the celestial spheres, we don't see that there's any other beings other than ourselves. It becomes a UFO drama. We can't really verify it. But what exists out there other than human beings? And if we accept the Bible, we believe there's some angels, good and bad, depending on whether you're Jewish or Christian. The destination is either there in heaven or perhaps in hell. that ever was on earth. And we have this one life. So, but other than that, everything is just working by physics and chemistry and biology and things like that. And so science started to, investigate and try to give people a more comfortable life and try to produce more wealth in the world through the use of inventions, especially in the form of machinery and combustion. Kali Yuga is an age of combustion, whereas the other yugas prior or ages of sound. They create things through sound mantras, by vibrating mantras. They can create fire, they can create weapons, they can create so many things by sound vibration. They can create fruit of results by sound vibration and performing yoga. Whereas in Kali Yuga, it's an age of combustion where, we get fire, and through fire we find combustion in the form of gunpowder. In various other ways, we start to make combustion, and that way we create like engines and generators to power things and to bring us cool when there's heat and warmth when there's cold, stuff like that. But all the laws are seen to be simply, laws, just laws. Laws are sort of impersonal. We don't see people behind laws. And there's also a philosophical name for that, for people, for people that see people behind nature, or see life behind nature. There's a whole philosophical word for that. Our science of philosophy and science is very, voluminous. And, scholars, they become like, what is that Sanskrit word, Gokula Pravit? Dr. Paul was quoting the verse, where one of the four kinds of people who don't take shelter of Krishna are those who are so absorbed in mundane knowledge. Thinkers who become so absorbed in mundane knowledge that they can't accept the simple truth of life, that God is a person, that there is a person in charge, and from him they've expanded so many persons, not just persons stuck in human bodies, and that there's actually persons in animal bodies, in tree bodies. That's why they have life. So that philosophy is, that's considered Hinduism in our modern world. Or they give it this philosophical name, the people that see people behind everything in nature. But that's considered sort of primitive amongst many thinkers. It's considered, the way Aborigines see things, because they can't think in terms of the laws of nature, and they don't understand physics and mathematics, basically. Because all these things are figured out through mathematics. So unless you have, unless you've been educated in mathematics and have a mathematical brain, then, they consider you, uneducated and less intelligent. And so consequently, that's why you have to see the world simply through seeing, a God behind everything. That's the way they believe. They don't have any faith in that. They have faith in science. And so consequently, Srila Prabhupada created the Bhaktivedanta Institute, especially for scientists, to teach Krishna consciousness and to bring a synthesis or a union with scientific understanding of laws and religious theology, which also can be very complex and require a very educated mind to understand. One needs an expanded vocabulary to understand those things because they talk in such high terms. But as devotees, we should understand, and we can verify through the mantra. Lord Chaitanya is the ultimate Protestant in one sense of creating a revolution against Orthodox religion. Because no longer did one have to be born in a Brahmin family to learn all this. You didn't have to appear in a Brahmin dynasty. They're the teachers of the universe, of the world, of human beings. The Kshatriyas bow down to the Brahmins, and so do the Vaishyas and the Sudras, because they have this knowledge of the Vedas passed down through their dynasties, and, in our Vedic culture. But Lord Chaitanya is giving initiation very easily. Just through the mantra. You get the mantra, and the mantra can bring the initiation. And so even Srila Prabhupada said, I accepted my guru internally. So later I formally took the initiation. So it's another way of initiation. And previously, the guru would give the Diksha mantra, so one can worship the deity. Without the mantra, how can you worship the deity? If we don't have the Gayatri mantra, then we can't worship the deity, because that mantra has to be said during the offering. So the Diksha Guru gives the mantra, but generally the Siksha Guru gives the instructions. Sometimes it may be the same person, but most of the time, especially in our modern age, it's different people. And they both represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Lord Chaitanya slightly changed things, and so did Srila Prabhupada. He was innovative, according to the times. Prior to Srila Prabhupada, there was not a first initiation in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. Bhaktisiddhanta called it Namadana. You get the name. And that in itself may bring initiation, depending on the sincerity of the disciple. Because Krishna is his name. Lord Chaitanya is making it easy for everyone. The name's going everywhere. But Srila Prabhupada said, it's the most important initiation, first initiation. And then later he said, the real initiation is second initiation. So the point is that one has to become Krishna conscious, and there's all sorts of means to do that, from the name to the heart accepting the teacher, to taking the formal initiation first, and getting the mantra and taking the vow, to follow those principles that Prabhupada gave such a great impetus to. Where people would give up intoxication and give up meat eating, give up inappropriate sexuality and speculation on the absolute truth, another form of gambling, to always just speculate about the absolute truth. Because as we can see, it's, our speculative abilities are very vast. One can be so hung up in speculating on the absolute truth that we can never accept the simple siddhanta coming down the line of disciplic succession. Because our mind is overwhelmed with tons and tons and tons of speculation, and we can't stop thinking in those ways. So to somehow ever get Divya Gyan through the initiation, Divya Gyan means, enlightenment. Divya, enlightenment. Gyan, knowledge. So to get knowledge whereby there's revelation, what is that revelation? Krishna is real. And everything comes from Krishna. And what is coming from Krishna? Not only material energy, but unlimited spiritual energy. And that energy is personal. There's unlimited persons. And among them, Lord Shiva is extremely unique. He's mentioned in the Brahma Samhita, just as Durga is, his eternal consort. The material energy. He is like curd, but Vishnu is like milk. What is the difference? There is no difference. But when acid is put in milk, it becomes curd. So when Vishnu looks over the material nature, becomes Shiva. So Shiva expands. From Vishnu, everything comes, including Shiva. But Shiva is not Jiva, because all the Jivas come, and the Jivas can be very potent. It's described that the Jiva, is bright as the sun. The soul is our self. The soul, we're a Vaikuntha being. We're like, we may have a form like Vishnu in Vaikuntha Loka. The beings there are extremely powerful. It is said that sometimes the devotees appear as rays of Vishnu, and sometimes Bhaktisiddhanta is attributed to being a ray of Vishnu. That means an expansion an incarnation from the spiritual world of one of the Vishnu Dutas, associates of Lord Vishnu. Lord Chaitanya is sometimes called the King of Vaikuntha, because in most Kali Yugas, he's an expansion of Vishnu. But now Kali Yuga, because Krishna just appeared, he's an expansion of Krishna. Or he is Krishna, Radha and Krishna. Anyhow, so everything is coming from the Lord. And the Lord himself is incarnating and expanding, and he's expanded his Paramatma, watching us, each and every one of us, and helping us, and waiting for us to stop thinking about, in our own narcissistic way, our own sense gratification, trying to get happiness that way, just manipulating and trying to control everyone for whatever we're trying to get out of life. And waiting for us just to turn to him and realizing that's what I should be doing, just satisfying you. We have been like a part of the body that refuses to cooperate with the whole body. What if my finger just was going crazy and wouldn't do what I wanted it to do? Because it was trying to force the rest of the body to do what it wanted to do. It would be a crazy finger. Or any part of the body that would do that. And it could be a very powerful organ. So that's not our real nature, is to turn our face to Vishnu and realize that our happiness comes from serving the whole, and the whole is the Supreme Person. The whole is not some impersonal thing that I meditate upon to get some power of mind that raises me into the all-pervading light, or whatever they consider it to be. No, the whole is the Supreme Person from whom all the other persons have come, and I'm just one of them. And when I start to focus on him and satisfy him, then I find eternal happiness and satisfaction. Why is that? Because I'm in harmony with the whole. I'm in harmony with him. When I'm in harmony with him, I can be in harmony with everyone, including Lord Shiva and the multitude of devas that control this universe. Our very body is controlled by them. From evacuation to reproduction, to the blood flow, to the work of the kidneys, etc. is all controlled by the devas, based on our karma. And, there's a deva for everything. Powerful devas. We shouldn't think them human-like. Powerful. Beyond human comprehension in many ways. Like in Vedic astrology, the deva of the planet Saturn is Shani. Well, you know why Shani made his appearance? And he appeared by the grace of Lord Shiva, but with the complete empowerment of Vishnu the corporation of Brahma. It was to give justice impartial, without any emotion or feeling, whether one was Deva or Asura, demon. Because the Asuras and the demons always fighting. The demons come from the same father, different mother, they're sisters, they're cousins in one sense, or they're half brothers. So they're all very powerful, and they fight for control of the universe. So that many times the Asuras feel mistreated. Some of them felt Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu were being partial. So Lord Shiva controlled his anger and said, from now on, somebody else will administer justice before one dies and goes to Yama. And so that name Shani means move very slow. It brings justice to all. And even in our Western world, we say the wheels of justice move very slow, but it grinds everything to fine dust. So good luck, bad luck. Most people who follow Vedic astrology think that's caused by Shani. Or So, in this way, an ever expansion of the Godhead in the material world, a lokapalana for controlling the universe according to the laws of nature. And when demons or those who are inimical to the laws of nature and don't want to cooperate with the laws of nature become so powerful, then that's why Vishnu many times incarnates. Because only he can apprehend them. And, many times it's pastime. He can apprehend them. So this Lord Shiva has most of the qualities of the Godhead. A lot of them, but not all of them. Whereas a jiva, we can only have something like Rupa Goswami describes, like 74% in minute proportion. I mean, we're energy of God, like a molecule of sunlight compared to the sun. So, I mean, we are a person. We are an expansion of Krishna, but, a very minute jiva expansion. It's a very minute, separate person. And we possess all of his qualities, but in minute proportion, and only 74% of them in minute proportion. But Shiva can possess something like 89% in a lot more proportion. I mean, Shiva is, worshipped almost as much as Vishnu amongst so many Vedic Brahmanas. He's the destroyer of the world. And, he takes care, some devotees describe him as he has a ISKCON center to take care of the very dark and fallen, conditioned souls. Perhaps all the addicts, and troubled people. Lord Shiva, although he's always surrounded by ghosts and people from the inferno, that he gives them shelter. He himself, keeps a necklace of skulls and ash all over his body. In his detached state of existence. So, but he has great sons. Like, Ganesh, who removes the obstacles from the path of the devotees, who is the scribe of the Vedas, who is considered the wisest amongst the Devas, and what to speak of the commander-in-chief of the Devas, Lord Indra's commander-in-chief, extremely powerful, Murgadev, very, very benevolent to his devotees. Kartikeya, these are sons of Lord Shiva. So, but they don't believe in any of this. This is just all mythology. That's what they think. But the devotees become peaceful man and eternally satisfied because they have revelation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what does Krishna say? He says, just worship me. Mamana, you think of me. They don't want to think of Krishna. They think of him, in sort of offensive terms. That's not really devotional service. Devotional service is when we think of Krishna favorably in a devotional way. But most people think of him actually in an offensive way. They don't even realize it. Because they just think, he's a sort of myth. They just, it's just like stories of Zeus and all those Greek gods. That's what they think. It's just Hindu mythology. There was even a parade in New Orleans 2 or 3 years ago. New Orleans, many of the parades are generally named after Greek and Roman gods. That's why they call it a pagan holiday, although it took place the day after, what is it? Oh God, I can't even remember. Anyway, there's 40 days before Easter, and in Catholicism,
Lent?
It's called Lent, but what's the day before Lent is the day of Mardi Gras.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because they would have a celebration where they would do all sorts of things that they wouldn't be able to do during Lent.
Right, it's like one last hurrah.
Yeah, so because they considered it was only the pagans that had orgies, so they liked having orgies too. So they would have an orgy before they had to do Lent because that way Jesus was going to save them. So, that many of them like that. I mean, not all of them, but, many that was the mentality. They started these parades, and so they named the parades after pagan gods. Pagan meaning Greek and Roman gods, because that's the religion that was followed in the Roman Empire and in the Greek world. Prior to Christianity, they didn't follow, the religion of the Hebrews that only existed in Israel. And the Romans drove them out because they just kept creating revolution and wouldn't submit to the government. So they just put an end to all of it and drove them away. And so consequently, the Jewish people were living all over the world and persecuted because they were considered the persons who killed Christ. In a world that was converted to Christianity when Rome, the Roman government, accepted it as their religion instead of the pagan religion. For, to some extent, for political reasons, they made, and there are so many other reasons. Constantine's mother became a Christian, and he had some dream and won a battle under the Christian cross. But, as the years passed and the empire became Christian, and they would supply the church to send out missionaries to convert the Germanic tribes to Christians, etc. These Celtics in England and whoever lived in Welsh and the people in Ireland and all over, where they traversed. So, and of course there was the eastern and the western parts of the empire. So that's what they did for this Mardi Gras thing. So 3 years ago there was one parade that did all Hindu gods. And actually there was some